my friends are synths.
Hello and welcome to my very elaborate webcam setup. I'd thought about doing some kind of Weaver Beats scenario where I turned the background into something bizarre just to cover the mess of the studio. However, I can't really be arsed, so you're stuck with this. The reason I'm making this video is because lately I've been having a wee bit of an identity crisis, at least in relation to this channel anyway. You know, the kind of thing, questions such as, why is a 30-something-year-old man spending his time uploading to YouTube anyway? And the truth is that I've gotten a wee bit bored of making the same kind of videos, and I don't really have any particular interest in being a synthfluencer. I want to experiment a wee bit more with doing video art and other topics like photography and all that kind of stuff. And I feel a bit like the name of the channel is tying me down into this particular niche. Anyway, I've been playing about with the name already, as you might have noticed, and I'll probably talk about that at length until you're sick of hearing about it in other videos. But recently I was speaking to Simon the Magpie on his podcast, Almost Viral, and it gave me the idea to seek counsel from the only source that I could reliably count on to give me God's honest truth. The place that acts as a kind of counterweight to synth YouTube's self-importance and strikes terror into the heart of gear snobs and synthfluencers, which is, I can't even say it, it's just fucking foaming up in my mouth. I am, of course, talking about SynthesizerCircleJerk. So, I've done just that. In order to try and find some inspiration, I posted this question to Reddit. Well, the subreddit, asking for help in renaming the channel. Aside from somebody suggesting that I pivot by having intercourse with synthesizers live on camera, or maybe pre-recorded, I don't know, they didn't specify. I'm fairly sure that's against YouTube's terms of service. But there were some other, more serious, I guess, pretty interesting suggestions, which I'll walk you through just now. A special mention has to go to Sir John Nipples, who came up with Fanny Dawes. This will probably make no sense to anybody outside of Scotland, and would almost certainly render the channel being demonetized or, you know, shadow banned at the least. But most importantly, John, or Sir John Nipples to give you your full title, your suggestion still has DAW in the name, which is kind of even worse than synthesizers, so unfortunately, that's a no. Scrolling down, H7-28, I hope I am pronouncing that right, has come up with an extensive list of possibilities here, including All My Friends Are Synths on Hiatus, a bit like Blink-182 I guess, and All My Friends Have Better Synths, which, by the way, is not accurate at all. I definitely have the better synth collection. I mean, can you not see this fucking piece of shit audio testing equipment? Anyway, my favourite of their suggestions has to be All I Wanted Was Synths, which I love, because in some ways they are right, and now that I have bled the synthesizer manufacturers dry of free gear, then I've kind of fulfilled the original purpose of this channel and I can move on. Naming the channel this would be refreshingly honest, at least. My only concern with this name is that there would be this implicit suggestion that I never got any synthesizers and I kind of failed, and that definitely isn't true, and I can't have people thinking that I didn't succeed at being a scrounger, so unfortunately that suggestion is also not going to be any use. Somebody called Blurt, I can't even fucking get it. Somebody called Blurt Flucker, got to be careful how I say that, suggested Dollis Bukaki, and the less said about that, the better, I think. Secrets of Blackmore's contribution was All Your Bass, as in B-A-S-S, are belong to us, which is a delightful reference, if you're not aware, to that old famous internet meme from the early years. If you're a youngster or a Gen Z person, then you might not be aware of this, unlike us older, more esteemed people. Unfortunately, the use of this would just tie me into a whole different niche. And whilst I did actually play bass in a band called Hog Wild that were, you know, wildly successful, pun intended, that was by pure necessity, because we couldn't get anyone else to play bass. And I have almost zero interest in the topic of bass guitar, so yeah, that's not going to work either. And plus, I had a search, it was too good not to have been used elsewhere, and it has. There's people that have called songs that and all sorts of stuff. So come on, I need some kind of due diligence. I need due diligence, Reddit strangers. You can't just suggest things without checking if they've been used already, fuck's sake. Joe Knows Nothing, all one word, all lowercase, provided some great suggestions that I'll go through individually. First of all, we've got 99 Problems But a Synth Ain't One, which would be an excellent name for a channel for obvious reasons. But this would suggest that I actually know what I'm talking about. as if I don't have any problems with synthesizers, which is definitely not the case. And also, it doesn't help me escape the synthesizer niche. Next up, we've got All My Friends Are Synthetic, which I like purely for the Gary Newman reference. Well done. Recovering Synthfluencer was another one, which is particularly tempting to use, but that would mean an admission on my part that I'd ever been a synthfluencer, which I am in stark denial about, so that's not going to happen either. And finally, there was various simp-related names, and I think they missed the trick here because they could have gone with All My Friends Are Simps. Keithka, which is an interesting name, said, all my friends are synths, but like I'm talking about synths as in androids, not synthesizers though, in case how you would make that mistake. A solid suggestion, and actually I have pondered the fact that synths doesn't need to refer to synthesizers and could mean, you know, a lot of things, particularly with the rise of AI and our inevitable downfall as a species, or at least you know, the loss of all of our jobs. But there's a character limit on YouTube names, I'm sure, so sadly that isn't going to work either. Deutsch Hotel suggests I have no friends. I don't know if that's a statement about themselves or about me, but if it's the latter, whilst that might be accurate, it is a wee bit on the nose. The current name is meant to kind of imply that I don't have any friends apart from the synthesizers, the subtlety being the clever part about the name, you see. Although I did discover a strange sub-genre recently on YouTube where there's all these videos of people titled things like no friends, no social life, no career at 54 or 29 or whatever, and they've all got like hundreds of thousands of views, so maybe it's not that bad an idea after all. The final one to highlight is probably one of my favourites, and it comes from somebody called Loom Blossoms, who suggested all my friends were synth, the clever implication or suggestion being obviously that I've moved on from the synthesizers or the synths. As good as this is, another user did point out that it might seem like all my friends were synths if you don't read it closely enough, which could be confusing. As enlightened and enlightening as these suggestions are, I don't think any of them have quite hit the mark yet, and so my crisis of identity continues. There have been a number of comments, not just on SynthesizerCircleJerk, but also on YouTube over the past year or so, talking about the possibility of me shifting towards ASMR because of my accent, which, whilst that is tempting, and I'm sure I would welcome the massive rise in subscribers and monetization as a result, I can't really compete with the likes of Scottish murmurs, and I'm not going to link that. I'll let you search it for yourself for obvious reasons, lest it pollute my YouTube search history. If you've got any thoughts or suggestions on what I could call the channel, please do drop them below, because I need all of the help I can get with this, quite frankly, ridiculous, overly self-indulgent and self-reflective undertaking. Ultimately, nobody gives a fuck, but it has been floating around in my head for some time and I need you to fix it, or else I'm going to keep making videos about it until you do. Whilst I figure this out, I'll still be posting the same old pish about music and everything else, so if you're concerned about missing my world-class, stellar content, have no fear. It'll still be there. Perhaps even more so. Just with a different name every week until I can think of something better. For now, goodbye.